Picture this. It's your birthday. Your phone buzzes with notifications, but something feels off. You're not excited. You're not even disappointed. You just feel nothing. And the strangest part? You've convinced yourself that's exactly how it should be. But what if I told you that this indifference, this casual dismissal of your own birthday, isn't random? What if it's actually a deeply philosophical response to something much bigger? Something about how we protect ourselves, how we define meaning, and how we've learned to survive in a world that taught us not to expect too much. Let's talk about what's really happening here. There's a concept that doesn't get talked about enough. The idea that as we grow older, we stop celebrating ourselves not because we've matured, but because we've adapted. We've learned to lower our expectations as a form of emotional survival. Think about it like this. When you were a child, your birthday was everything. It was the one day the universe revolved around you. The anticipation, the cake, the presents, the attention, it all felt magical. But somewhere along the way, that magic faded. And now you find yourself saying things like, I don't really do birthdays anymore. But here's where it gets interesting. This shift isn't just about getting older or becoming more mature. It's actually rooted in something philosophers have been exploring for centuries: the relationship between expectation and suffering, between validation and self-worth, between needing to be seen and learning to exist without that need. The ancient Stoics understood this tension well. They recognized that much of our pain comes from wanting things to be different than they are, from expecting celebration and receiving silence, from hoping to be remembered and being forgotten. But they also knew something else, that true freedom comes not from receiving external validation, but from no longer requiring it. And in today's world, where social media has turned birthdays into performative spectacles, where we're expected to broadcast our joy and curate our celebrations, some people have quietly opted out. Not because they don't care, but because they found a different way to exist, one that doesn't depend on the world's acknowledgement. But is that wisdom? Or is it just survival disguised as philosophy? The psychology of emotional self-protection. Let's start with what's actually happening in your brain when you say, it's just another day. Your mind is doing something incredibly intelligent. It's protecting you. Psychologists call this lowering the bar of expectation, and it's a survival mechanism that develops after repeated disappointments. Think about it like this. If you've ever hoped someone would remember your birthday and they didn't, your brain files that away. Once, maybe it was an accident. Twice, a pattern starts forming. 3 times, your brain says, okay, new strategy, stop hoping. And here's where it gets fascinating. This isn't weakness. It's actually a form of emotional intelligence. You're teaching yourself to find stability and consistency rather than excitement and unpredictability. The problem is that over time, this same protection mechanism can quietly numb you to joy itself. Arthur Schopenhauer, the German philosopher known for his pessimistic but brutally honest view of human nature, understood this perfectly. He believed that desire itself is the root of suffering, that wanting anything, including recognition or celebration, opens the door to pain. So, the solution? Reduce desire. Expect nothing, and you'll never be disappointed. Sounds logical, right? But here's the catch. When you stop expecting anything good, you also stop feeling the fullness of being alive. You become a spectator in your own existence, watching your life happen from a safe distance. The mirror of existence. Now, let's talk about what birthdays actually represent, because they're not really about cake and candles. Your birthday is the one day that marks your existence purely for existing, not for what you've accomplished, not for who you love or who loves you, but simply because you were born. You are here. And for many people, that's an uncomfortable mirror to look into. Why? Because it forces a confrontation with time. It makes you ask questions you've been avoiding, like, who have I become this year? Am I living honestly? Am I becoming someone I recognize, or have I been sleepwalking through my own life?
And the existentialists, thinkers like Kierkegaard and Sartre, were obsessed with this idea of authentic existence. They argued that most people live in what they called bad faith, going through the motions of life without truly choosing it, without truly owning their existence. And birthdays? They're these inconvenient annual checkpoints that force you to look at whether you're living authentically or just existing. So when someone treats their birthday like any other day, they might actually be doing something profound. They're saying, I don't need one special day to validate my existence because I'm trying to live meaningfully every day. That's beautiful. But it can also be a form of avoidance, a way of not looking in that mirror at all. The paradox of needing not to need. Here's where things get really interesting. There's a paradox at the heart of this whole thing, and it's one that most people never articulate but deeply feel. We all want to be seen, genuinely seen, but we also don't want to seem like we need to be seen. We want someone to remember our birthday without us having to mention it. We want recognition without having to ask for it. We want love that arrives unprompted, unbidden, like proof that we matter even when we're silent. And this is what makes birthdays such a subtle emotional test. You don't announce it, it's a test. That would defeat the purpose. But your mind quietly observes. Who remembered? Who reached out without a reminder? Who still sees you when you're not making yourself visible? And even if you've convinced yourself it doesn't matter, there's a small part of you that still checks, that still keeps score. Because here's the truth. No matter how emotionally self-reliant you become, you never truly outgrow the need for connection. You just get better at hiding it. Friedrich Nietzsche wrote about this tension brilliantly. He talked about the will to power, not power over others, but power over yourself, the ability to create your own values and not depend on others for your sense of worth. But even Nietzsche, who preached self-overcoming and independence, craved recognition from his peers. He died without receiving it, his books largely ignored during his lifetime. The irony is profound. Even the philosophers who taught us not to need validation needed validation.
The redefinition of joy. So what happens when someone genuinely stops caring about their birthday in the traditional sense? When it's not protection, but transformation? For some people, the shift is real. They've genuinely redefined what celebration means. It's no longer about noise, spectacle, or other people's attention. It's about alignment, living in a way that feels true to who they are. Their celebration might look like taking a quiet walk alone, cooking their favorite meal, reading a book that makes them think, sitting in silence and simply acknowledging, I made it another year. I'm still here. I'm still trying. This is what the Stoics called living in accordance with nature, not your animal nature, but your rational, authentic nature. When your actions align with your values, you experience a deep sense of fulfillment that doesn't need external applause. But, and this is crucial, even people who've reached this place of inner alignment still carry a quiet hope. They still notice who remembers. They still feel a small warmth when someone reaches out genuinely. Because being self-sufficient doesn't mean being immune to love. It just means you're no longer desperate for it. And there's a beautiful dignity in that difference. The ones who hold space for others. Here's something you might not have considered. The people who treat their birthdays like normal days are often the same people who remember everyone else's. They're the ones who check in on you first, who send thoughtful messages on your important dates, who hold space for others' joy even when their own feels complicated. They're the quiet anchors in their social circles, the reliable, the steady, the ones who give without keeping score. And somewhere along the way, they internalized a message. My needs come second. My joy is less important. Other people's happiness matters more than mine. This isn't humility. It's emotional fatigue. It's the weight of always being the strong one, the dependable one, the one who doesn't need anything. Carl Jung talked about the concept of the persona, the mask we wear to meet the world's expectations. For many people, their persona is the one who doesn't need anything. And over time, that mask becomes so comfortable, so habitual,
that they forget there's a real person underneath who still desires warmth, recognition, and connection. The tragedy is that these are often the people who deserve celebration most and believe they deserve it least. So what does all of this mean for you? If your birthday feels like just another day, you're not broken, you're not cold or emotionless. You're human, navigating the complex territory between independence and connection, between protecting yourself and staying open to joy. Maybe you've genuinely found peace in the ordinary. Maybe you're still healing from disappointment. Maybe it's both. But here's what I want you to remember. Celebration doesn't always need to be loud to be real. Sometimes the deepest form of honoring your existence is simply acknowledging it, quietly, privately, authentically. You don't need permission from the world to matter. You already do. Even on the days that feel ordinary, especially then. Now, I want to hear from you. Do you treat your birthday like a normal day? And if you do, what's the real reason behind it? Is it peace, protection, or something entirely different? Drop a comment below and let's have an honest conversation about this. And if this video resonated with you, hit that like button. It genuinely helps more people find content like this. Subscribe if you want more philosophy and psychology that actually makes you think about your own life differently. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.